Don't know if this is going to be finished and uploaded, or if I'm going to end up hitting stop and not completing the thought. I think where a lot of the unreasonable acting up and acting out that I've referred to in the past will come from is people whose lifetime trauma has put them into a pathological mindset. What I'm saying about what I mean with that is that imagine nothing. I'm going to talk about real things, but imagine you have heuristics. You have automatic responses set up for certain anticipated stimuli as a psyche, right? Whether it is how you wave and say hello to people, there's a particular person you say a particular way of hello or hi or how you doing or hey or what's up. You greet your friends in a specific way when you see them. And sometimes you may mistakenly activate such a heuristic when it's not actually the right time. Sometimes you get some awkward conversation moments or you say the wrong thing, right? But imagine your entire day-to-day is heuristic. That's pathology. A pathological person has nothing but heuristics. Never to stop, ponder, think about something, but just to react. Responses can be thought out. Reactions are just loaded in and ready to go. And sometimes they're word salad. Sometimes they make sense. Think about what the world is looking at right now, economically, socially, culturally. The collapse. And when all that shit goes down, that dude at work that's being a dick because he wants his money, right? And I've been in the same position of feeling the same way. But I was able to prove that someone in a given circumstance of having that feeling was actually doing something that was screwing me over. And I always make sure first, before I ever say anything, before I ever do anything, before any plans are ever hatched. Now, yes, this is cryptic. Imagine people that are pure reaction, emotional response without thought. Typically unreasonable people. This is the full gamut of hobbled by mental illness when it comes to things like psychosis or delusion, any kind of conflict between reality as it is, the actuality, and reality as your mind is trying to convince you it is or as you perceive it to be. And it would be like you're seeing a walkway and it's just a big chasm. And if you step out onto that walkway, you're going to fall straight through the non-existent thing and fall through the chasm. Well, then at that point, what are you doing? Are you freaking out? Are you panicking? Are you thinking, hey, wow, looks like I was wrong? Or are you still operating as if you're walking across this imaginary bridge? And as you're walking across this imaginary bridge, you are actually falling. So as you're falling, you're just, like a video game NPC that has gotten out of its path, but has not changed what its order of actions are. A predetermined set of, like a route through the city. This determines walk X number of steps, turn left, walks X number of steps, turn right. But getting caught up in something that prevents them from doing anything without having anything in their programming alert them to the fact that their course has been interrupted, that they then just continue like pushing into a wall and just, walking in the corner stuck. And you can see them walk X number of paces and turn left and walk X number of paces, turn right. But they're just stuck between like a phone pole and a fence. What about narcissists. And I'm not talking about people who actually have a cunning mind and are self-centered. I'm talking about people who are pathologically unself-aware and self-centered, unreasonable at the same time, and low intelligence. Because most narcissists fit those categories. They think they are more than they are. I was brought up in a household where my parents, especially as a kid, as a teenager, things changed a bit. But as a kid especially, it was this attitude of other people have mental illness. We are normal and we do not have mental illness. And the truth is, mental illness runs in both sides of the family, different kinds. The interaction of the genetic aspects of it, something to behold, let me tell you. So you have somebody who wants to screw as many people over as possible to gain as much advantage as possible. What sometimes gets described as a psychopath too. Someone who will just do whatever it takes to succeed in the short term, at whatever expense, in the long term. When the U.S. economy turns into the Venezuelan economy, and food is scarce, or food is in abundance, but no one can afford to buy it, and it rots on the shelf, and it pisses people off, it will be the people who only really care about gaining every advantage in the short term without regard to the long term, who will attempt to or succeed at taking it anyway. But what about when they are so entrenched in the system of the government, the economy, the culture, etc., the society? What if they insist on doing it with money? And the money just bottoms out? How are they going to react? That's the real question. When it becomes impossible to live normally, are they the ones who will first begin raiding and, exploring for other people's property? Will they be the first? I kind of think that's what it's going to end up being. You might say that there's some crossover between that and some demographics that can be assessed via economic and racial and other qualifications. But ultimately, I believe it is the people that are pathologically unself-aware. They are ignorant to consequence. It's a foreign concept to them that anything they can do could ever come back to hurt them, and that any time that anything that they do come back to hurt them, it is somehow someone else's fault. And even if they can't ignore the fact that it was their fault, they will forgive themselves for whatever transgression they rationalize out of it, whatever failure, right? All of this is in description an inferior person. I found the best way anytime I encountered something that seemed like narcissistic behavior or thought patterns or whatever was to remind myself that only somebody who's fucked up and broken would act like that. And I would refuse to act like that. It doesn't make me better. I'm not that good at life. I'm having my own little mini monumental overcoming of adversity or whatever. But I'm not in charge of shit. Nobody listens to anything I have to say, or at least nobody who is themselves in a position to do anything to fix the world with any kind of ease. Just other people like myself, stuck at whatever peonic level we're at. I have no illusion about that. But just thinking about no less than a third of the population is clinically narcissistic. No less than a third. And it's entirely possible that that number has swollen since the pandemic and the advent of social media before it. I suppose the quickest advantage would be like their immediate neighbors. And I imagine that trying to raid the immediate neighborhood for your own survival is going to lead to death. One way or another. The reason for this video is I had a really good day today. It was good. Nothing catastrophic happened in my car or anything else. But to make the suggestion to someone else that they were at that very moment opening themselves up for more of something that they had been complaining about was met with obstinance, pathological defiance, just because someone said to not do something, I'm going to do it, kind of thing. Petty, short-term only, no consequences, foreign concept. During the day, I had a great, positive mindset. Everything was fine, everything was good. And I knew there's always a possibility of something, but I don't believe that this was like a predestined thing, or even necessarily a consequence of my having a positive day. 2 in a row, in fact. I am aware that whatever underlying gears and strings and plot line or whatever that could be said about my life, whatever's going on there, that it wasn't a setup. What it was is I guess my failure to understand someone else's way of thinking, because I just can't force myself to think that way. And when I do, I'm repulsed. Being the way that I am, I strive for honor. I strive for integrity. I don't strive for perfection. I just strive for improvement when improvement is warranted. But I have a limit to how far I will go when I know that I am just spinning my wheels. I've learned not to spin my wheels. And what happened then was, in the midst of conversation, outside at volume, complaining about people who live about 50 feet yonder, and several neighbors in the neighborhood, all of whom we know for a confirmed fact, conversing with those people, to have a loud conversation complaining about a thing that would cause the people and all the people they know to talk. It's people talking that's the complaint. If you don't like the people talking, stop giving them stuff to talk about. That's it. But the snap back into unself-aware, obstinate, just reaction in the opposite direction of some stimulus that you find unpleasant is negative numbers of emotional maturity. And frankly, being in the presence of that mentality makes me feel like I'm losing IQ points. And so I reached the point of understanding that I am accomplishing nothing. Anything further makes it worse. Time to go home. And that's what happened. And then, rather than attempt to converse with me or say anything, somebody just goes and posts stuff online. And what they're posting online is rationalization to agree with themselves about something they want to be true, even if it's not. Right now, you've got this social landscape of interactions with people, laws, regulations, customs, traditions, the way people just do their thing. Whether you're waving to someone or not on a country road, stopping at a stop sign, using a turn signal, obeying a speed limit. But that system is all in our heads. It's the idea of abiding by a social contract, which is a mental construct among people. It's a group mental construct. But the people with the pathologies have their pathologies built at attempts to camouflage within that system. And when that system breaks down, what will they do? They are pathological. They are not self-aware. Not being self-aware, but being pathological means that their ability to adapt is negligible. You're going to have people just sit down where they're at and scream. But there's nobody to help them. Everything's collapsing. And there's other people that are going to think they're 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and they're going to think they're going to hatch a secret plan to break in and steal and get the whatever from some, whether it's the neighborhood or somewhere else. And all of that leads to abject failure. Because you have pathology guiding short-sighted people in completely unfamiliar territory. That is what is to come. I feel bad, in a way, for all the people that are like that, because most of the time they're really not at fault for it being that way. It's genetic or it's trauma-based. You're not, the things that happen to you are not your fault. Never were. But when you have a bell curve graph of IQ, and you take that central line, the most average, the 100, that person's really not that smart. And half of the people are even dumber. Portions of the steep part of that bell curve are all the people I've just been talking about. You interact among them. You don't even think about it. You would expect that the upper middle part of the bell curve is where you are, and all the people around you are too. And it's not like that. The distribution is interlaced throughout. You'd be surprised at people you didn't realize were dumb as fuck, operating like robots. And one day, when the shit's all fallen over, those people are either going to attempt to continue to do the thing that they've been doing, or they're going to crash out. So, anyways, that's what I got. I had an incredibly positive day. This weekend was awesome. And I wish tonight could have been more awesome, but I believe that was outside of my control. And I'm venting here in a way that only a few people might understand what I'm even talking about. Not standing out openly in front of the people, causing the problem that I'm complaining about. Even though I suppose I could have tried to say something directly, but I don't think it would have been accepted. I don't think it would have been heard or listened to. I would have been wasting my breath even more. Which is why, in times like that, the best thing to do is say, okay, well, I'm out, and then leave.